Lighthouse Church presents the following message by Pastor Jason Holloman.
If you are a first-time guest with us, you have the privilege of joining us in the middle of Habakkuk, which, listen, friends, that's tough. If you're a first-time guest coming in, maybe even if you're not really into the things of God, Habakkuk's a tough one. And so if you need to pretend like you know where that is in the Bible, then just pull out an app and just start looking for it and you'll find it. Where we are today is in Habakkuk chapter 2, beginning in verse 2. We're going to go from verse 2 all the way to verse 20. And so we attempt to look at minor prophets in the middle of the summer for a number of reasons. And so the minor prophet that we're looking at this summer is Habakkuk. And so to catch up some of you that have not been here, or for those of you that are watching, Habakkuk in chapter 1 is the prophet. And so he's frustrated because he's looking at his people, and as he's looking at his people, he's looking at them wondering what's happening. They're not being faithful, right? So he's looking at his own people saying, hey, they're not very faithful. Hey, God, where are you? What are you doing? I want to hear from you. God then says, oh no, I've been watching. And I'm going to discipline those people, and I'm going to use very wicked people, the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, same group. And so I'm going to use them, and I'm going to use them to reprove your people. And so then the response of Habakkuk, for those of you that have been with us, is, okay, listen, I thought you were doing nothing. Now I'm afraid of what you're doing. So why would you use them? Why do you favor them over Israel? And now what we have is the response of God. And so God is now responding back to Habakkuk. So this is the second response from the second question. The second question simply being, why do you favor them? Why do you use a wicked nation against a nation that's not so bad? Why do you do that? And then what are you going to do for them? Are you going to in any way come after them? Right? So Habakkuk here is trying to figure out what's going on. It's a personal lament, which is really helpful. We get this opportunity to look here and see. We get a chance to see, what is he thinking? This prophet, right, that is lamenting before God. And so it's a really great opportunity for us because we find ourselves in a season of life. For so many of us are in seasons of lament where we ask the question, where are you? Where are you doing? What are you doing? Are you present? Do you hear me? Are you watching what's happening in culture right now? And so it's a really fun opportunity for us to be able to see this and be able to enjoy what it is that Habakkuk is thinking here in his journal entry. And so we have an opportunity to, where is the mic that's normally here? Do you have it? Okay. Oh, it's right over there. Isn't there one normally here? For those of you that are at home, I'm trying to fix my mic, and I'm so sorry. Jeff's taking care of it. And so if you have your Bible, turn to Habakkuk chapter 2, and we're going to start in verse 2. Habakkuk chapter 2, beginning in verse 2. And the Lord answered me, write a vision, make it plain on tablets, so that he may run who reads it. Now, as we start this, as we begin to see what Habakkuk is hearing from the Lord, what we see here very clearly is that already we have an idea here of what, are we ready? We're good? Thank you. Write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so that he may run who reads it. Verse 3, for still the vision awaits for its appropriate time. It hastens to the end, and it will not lie. Now, if I was to say to you, hey, I'm going to guarantee something. So if I was to say, hey, listen, I'm going to guarantee something like this thing that I have, Jason, am going to personally guarantee it. Now, you might say, okay, that's great. What guarantee do you have? Or if I say, hey, this trinket that I'm going to sell, this trinket, it is a lifetime warranty. A lifetime warranty, really. Well, whose life is this a warranty of? Do you see the idea? So when God himself responds to Habakkuk, and God says this, that this vision awaits its appointed time, it hastens to the end, and it will not lie. These are the words of God saying this. This isn't some guy who's been working at this particular car dealership that says, hey, I've been here for 30 years. I know the product. I know I can stand behind this product, or I've watched this product. This is the creator, king of the universe, who is saying here, if you see this, it will be given in the appropriate time. It hastens to the end. Now, this word hasten is quite fun, actually. This word hasten, if you've ever been to a race or if you've ever watched somebody run to the end of a race, what you will see is the very last bit of running, is when everybody's just running and they're just exhausted and they're breathing in and they're breathing out and they're just unbelievably exhausted and they're like just taking in that last bit of breath. And as they go to just run to the end, what you see here is hasten. That's the idea, right? And so just to the very, very end, to the last breath, to the last exhausting moment, this will happen. It will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. For behold, verse 4, his soul is puffed up, and it is not upright within him. But the righteous shall live by faith. Now, for those of you that are a part of church history, or for those of you that study church history, you'll know that Martin Luther, the Protestant reformer, so not Martin Luther the King Jr., but Martin Luther, the Protestant reformer, he hung the entirety of the Protestant Reformation on this verse. Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, the whole thing? This was the verse that Martin Luther was reading, and it caused within him a desire to begin the process of nailing the 95 Thesis on the wall against the Holy Apostolic Church. And so right here you see that behold, the soul is puffed up and not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by faith. Dr. Walford, one of my professors back in the day, Dr. Walford said that not only does Habakkuk hang on this verse, but the entirety of the scriptures hang on this verse. Now we're going to get to the end, and our application is here for verses 1, 2, 3, and 4, but we're going to continue to go. And what starts in verse 5 is basically 5 woe passages for the remainder of our time. So what you see is 5 different ways that the Chaldeans are walking in pride. 5 different ways. And so we start in verse 5. Moreover, an arrogant man who never rests. His greed is as wide as Sheol. Like death, he has never enough. He gathers for himself all of the nations and collects as his own all peoples. Woe to the Chaldeans. Now, as you look at this is a powerful phrase that as we enter into this idea, God himself is saying this of the Chaldeans, right? So this is no longer the people that Habakkuk is frustrated with. So we know those folks, right? We know that Habakkuk was frustrated with them. He's asking where God is, and then now he sees that God himself is talking about the Chaldeans, a horrible people. Verse 6, shall not all of these take up their taunt against him, with scoffing and riddles for him, and say, woe to him who heaps up that which is not his own. For how long? And loads himself with pledges. Verse 7, will not your debtors suddenly arise, and those awake who will make you tremble? Then you will be the spoil for them. Now, if you are familiar with history here, the book of Daniel is right during this same time. And so we see here in Daniel chapter 5. In Daniel chapter 5, this is the passage, right? When he begins to say, hey, the writing on the wall. Do you remember the story? And so the writing on the wall, and what you see is that the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, in one night were overthrown. This was a people with walls like ramparts, 21 feet high, miles long, and they were overtaken immediately in a single night. The prophecy that Daniel himself could translate in a dream. Verse 8, Because you have plundered many nations, all the remnant of the peoples shall plunder you, for the blood of man and violence to the earth, the cities and all who dwell in them. Verse 9, woe to him who gets evil gain for his house, so that the nest on high to be safe from the reach of harm. Verse 10, you have devised shame for your house by cutting off many peoples. You have forfeited your life. Verse 11, for the stone will cry out from the wall, and the beam from the woodwork respond. Now, we have already gone through 2 of the 5 woes. What is the first? Greed. We see here the first woe, Habakkuk chapter 2, beginning in verses 6 through 8, is the greed of the Chaldeans. The second, beginning in chapter 2, beginning in verses 9 through 11, it's this arrogant self-assertion. They're just brazen in the way that they think of themselves. And then we're coming into the third, and that is 2, verses 12 through 14. Woe to you, verse 12, who builds a town with blood and founds a city on iniquity. Behold, it is not, verse 13, from the Lord of hosts that the people labor merely for fire, and the nations weary themselves for nothing. This is what's interesting about this passage, is because they labor for fire. What in the world would somebody labor for fire for? Why would somebody do all of this labor, all the nations begin to strive, all the effort and work of the Babylonians putting all this structure in place? And what the Father here is saying is that this will burn up. This will in the end be like ash. And so they labor for fire, and the nations weary themselves for nothing. Verse 14, a wonderful reprieve in the midst of what feels unbelievably hard from the Lord. Verse 14, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as waters cover the sea. This is almost an exact replication of what is said in Isaiah chapter 11, beginning in verse 9. What you see is that the knowledge of the Lord will fill the earth. The glory of the Lord will fill the earth as waters cover the sea. Verse 15 gets us right back into the woe passage. It's the fourth of 5. Woe to him who makes his neighbor drunk. You pour out your wrath and make them drunk in order to gaze upon their nakedness. Verse 16, you will have to fill your shame instead of glory. Drink yourselves and show your uncircumcision. This idea here in the life of Israel would be that you're scorned. So to not be circumcised in Habakkuk's day would be a person who is outside of the campus, a scorned person. So nakedness here would reveal that you are outside of camp. Verse 17, the violence done to Lebanon will overwhelm you as the destruction of the beasts that terrified them. For the blood of man and violence to the earth, to cities and all who dwell in them. Just north here of Jerusalem, what you have is you have Lebanon. And what is Lebanon known for? It is known for its expansive forests. In fact, often you will hear they'll say, hey, the cedars of Lebanon, these massive cedar trees that are throughout all of Lebanon. And within the forests of these cedar trees is much of the wild beasts of Israel. And so what happened when Babylon began to take over, they didn't just begin to destroy the cities. They began to just cut these forests in expansive as they expanded. And each of these forests would begin to be decimated to build their continued empire. As they came upon them, they would continue to crush each of and decimate each of the wild animals in these forests. And so even here, the Lord sees not just the human toil, because we see that. That God here sees what is happening to the earth, what is happening to his creation. The Lord doesn't just see what's happening to his people. He begins to see exactly what is happening in his created order. And so here the Lord has indicated that he knows exactly what is happening even to the beasts of the forest. He's taking note. This is a God who sees perfectly. Verse 18. And we see here that Habakkuk receives from the Lord a question, and not beginning with woe. And this is the question from God. What profit is an idol when it is maker has shaped it? A metal image, a teacher of lies. Woe to him, verse 19, who says to a wooden thing, awake, to a silent stone, arise. Can this teach? Behold, it is overlaid with gold and silver. There are no breath in it at all. There's no breath in it at all. Verse 20, but the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silent before him. Now, what do we take from such a response from God? Like you don't, as we've made jokes about the last couple of weeks, you don't just say, hey guys, we're so glad that you joined, or that you came to the church. Shut the Bible and then say, figure out an application. Good luck. We don't do that. And so what you see here is Habakkuk is asking from God, are you going to do something about the Chaldeans? Do you favor them? Why do you use them? Why are they a part of your plan? And God's response could not be more clear. God's response is, oh no, I know exactly what kind of people they are. I know exactly how I'm using them. I know exactly the extent of what they're doing. I know exactly to the extent that they will carry out my purposes. And so the first thing I thought as I was considering this passage a number of weeks ago is that even the worst of the worst, whether it be a job, whether it be a spouse, whether it be a neighbor, whether it be a president of an HOA, whoever or whatever it might be, God knows exactly. God knows exactly the extent of his use of those wicked people. Now, I would say the message is quite clear to Habakkuk, wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you say the message is quite clear? In fact, I wrote here as a response of Habakkuk. Now, we have not gone into the response of Habakkuk, so we haven't moved into chapter 3, which basically is just an entire chapter of him beginning to just sing songs of praise, just beginning to kind of talk about all the things that he is reflecting upon. And I wrote this down. The message is clear. Stop complaining. Stop doubting. God is not blind to suffering. He is not blind to sin. He is not insensitive to sin. He is not insensitive to suffering. God here sees perfectly and is perfect. In fact, as I was studying for this time, there was a sermon that was preached by a preacher that I really like. I like listening to, I like reading his sermons. And Spurgeon wrote a sermon, or preached a sermon that was written, and he preached a sermon May 27th of 1883, long time ago. And he preached this sermon on Habakkuk 2:4. In fact, he preached this in the Metropolitan Tabernacle. I know Kenny's been there and stood behind the pulpit. It's a great area there in London. If you have the opportunity to go see it, it's awesome. And so he preached this sermon, and in his sermon, he preached this about Habakkuk 2, Habakkuk 2:4. Let me read again Habakkuk 2 and 2 through 4. And the Lord answered to me, write a vision, make it plain on tablets, so that he may run who reads it. For still the vision awaits for its appointed time. It hastens to the end, it will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It surely will come, it will not delay. And then our verse. Behold, his soul is puffed up. It is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by faith. And this is what he writes in his sermon.